Check. Brain, can you hear me, Gordon? What's going on, everybody? What is going on, everybody? My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on this live stream. Yeah, I feel like I missed a part there. Welcome back to another Red Sea live stream. I'm missing something. I didn't do that intro well enough. Redo it. Ready? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Red Seat live stream. My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on this live stream. There it is, chat. I don't know why it sounded so weirdly, and I appreciate all the birthday wishes, guys. Thank you. I don't know why I said that intro so weirdly. That came across extremely strange. Mr. Money Mike Madness has been in here for a minute, and I appreciate you, Mike. You're always the first person to be in this chat, and I appreciate you for that, man. Mr. Prodigy is here. Prodigy, what is going on, my guy? How you doing? Man, it has been a $20 super chat to open it up. I didn't even turn my camera on. I don't even know if Stream Alerts is up and ready to go, but we got a $20 donation, man. Mr. Versatility, first and foremost, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me? Check. Type 1 if you guys can hear me. Before I glaze Versatility too much. We can hear you? Okay. Thank you. Beautiful. Anyways, Prodigy, man, that's unbelievably kind of you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I apologize for, I did buy the keyboard, Meek. Check it out. Brand new keyboard, ladies and gentlemen. Brand new. But I appreciate you, Prodigy. Thank you, man. You're the man. That was unbelievably kind of you. Thank you. Yeah, I apologize for having to move it, but you know, when the fiance says she wants to buy you dinner, you're not gonna say no. You know what I mean? My grade for the offseason, thank you, Cam. My grade for the offseason so far. So here's the thing. I've actually been thinking about this a lot lately. In terms of what my grade would be for this offseason, because I've seen a lot of people start talking about this. One, I feel like the offseason itself isn't over yet, so it's still a little bit incomplete. Yeah, we're going to talk about it in a second, hot dog. It's still a little bit incomplete, right? So to me, there's a couple of different ways it could go. But, you know, there's also two ways of looking at it in terms of what's already been done. I think in terms of what's been done, oh, there it is, Versatility. Another thank you, my friend. Another thank you. In terms of what's actually been done, like the additions in a vacuum, one roster compared to the final roster for the Red Sox in 25 versus the new roster coming in at 26. You know, like pitching wise, I think it's I think it's probably a B plus. I mean, Suarez was a huge addition. I think Sonny Gray is going to be solid. I like the Johan Oviedo one. You're just kind of missing that bullpen piece, and I think that would bring it up to like an A- area. Offensively, you look at, okay, what were the additions offensively? It was just Wilson Contreras, right? And you lost Bregman. So, you know, you sit there and it's like, I would imagine that would probably be like a C-, right? But then you also have to look at it in terms of, so it probably average out for me personally, somewhere in the B, right? Somewhere in the B range, probably a B- in my opinion, just this vacuum itself. Now, if we bring it out into the larger vacuum here and talk about our expectations coming into the offseason and expectations coming out of the offseason, if the Red Sox don't add a bat, it's going to be really hard for me to give them anything but like a C. And it's because the pitching was so well, but you didn't get anything you wanted offensively, right? You simply replaced Alex Bregman barely with Wilson Contreras here. And you didn't add that power bat, right? Your offense did not get any better. So I sit here with this, and it's hard for me to be, super pumped about all the moves here because of the context in which the moves were made. But if we're just looking at a vacuum, it was a solid offseason. Like again, I say this all the time. We sit here as Red Sox fans and we're like, because we got all the narratives and we got all the conversation, especially here on Red Sea Radio. We talked about the Red Sox, every single sort of news item, report, rumor, whatever it may have been, right? But the national media is just looking at what the Red Sox actually did and didn't do. And the national media, and honestly, a lot of like national people are like, yeah, the Red Sox are a top 10, top 7, top 5 team in baseball. But we sit here because of the context, and we're like, oh, wait a second here. Something's missing, right? Something's clearly missing because of what we were told was going to happen this offseason. So that's kind of where I'm at here. Corbett, I think Paredes is now likely to get moved, that he agreed. Not or now? Did you mean to type now, versatility? Yeah, so my plan for today, is to a lot of conversations we've been having lately is who are the Red Sox going to trade for, right? And there's a couple of big like sort of okay, these are the guys that sort of have been at least publicly made relatively available, right? And the ultimate question I keep getting over and over again is, what's it actually going to cost to get these guys, right? What does an actual trade look like for Nico Hoerner? What does an actual trade look like for Isaac Paredes? Now, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but I wanted to go through a little bit and just sort of outline all of this, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to spend this kind of live stream here to just sort of simply go through everything. Are you okay with this package? If not, right? If not, okay, what does this package look like? And is there somewhere you'd be comfortable with? And what's the reality here is kind of what I'm going to try and go for in this video. Hey, I appreciate it, Trick. Thank you, man. What's the Paredes contract? It's 2 more years of arbitration. What did he settle for, versatility? Do you know? No, I don't think so, Gustavo. He signed a 1-year, $9.35 million deal. Interestingly, almost exactly about $1.35 million off of $1.35 million off of the money you just saved dumping Jordan Hicks. So that's a little bit interesting, but anyways, yeah, so I did want to start. We're going to talk about this tomorrow, I think, but I did want to start with this because this is more than just a, hey, did you see this minor league signing? Because this one is one that, let me see, maybe Tyler Milliken had it. Who was, someone tweeted the exact, like, contract deals. Here it is. Okay, so Will Sampson. I'll go to Will then. So the Red Sox did sign Kyle Keller right before we got on. Kyle Keller, it's a minor league deal, but the reason I'm going to talk about it tomorrow kind of in depth here is this right here, right? This is interesting because this leads me to believe that he's going to have a real shot at making the club. $1.9 million if in the major, plus a $500K performance bonuses. Was really good in the NPB. Played in Major League Baseball back in 2021. We could quickly go over him, and then, again, I'm going to dive into detail about him tomorrow just because this will be an interesting video, I think. So this was his Major League career. Okay, so only did 33 innings for Pittsburgh back at 21. It wasn't very good, and then kind of went over to the NPB and sort of reinvented himself a little bit. Strikeouts went up. Really was great. Did a great job at limiting the hits here, too. A lot of walks, though. A lot of walks, actually. So we'll see what that kind of translates to. Is he a lefty? No, he's a righty. So this will be interesting. There goes one 40-man roster spot. He signed to a minor league deal, so you'd have to add it. Would really love Marte, but that ain't happening. Tupac, I cannot talk about that on stream. What's up? What's up, Steven? How you doing, man? Will we get a healthy story? They're hoping we get a healthy story. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. I appreciate all the birthday messages. Thank you. Yeah, versatility. That's sort of going to be my major point here is that, like, this is, there's a lack of power right now in the NPB. There's more, it's more contact oriented in the NPB right now, I would say, at least personally. And I don't watch a ton of NPB games. I do once in a while find myself on NPB highlights on YouTube. They're pretty fun to watch. If you get a chance, just check them out. Like that it's pretty cool. But anyways, yeah. So I personally, like from what I've seen, and again, I don't watch full games. I just watch highlights on YouTube. It's sort of a lot of like contact oriented hitting. So, you look at the ERAs, it's like, okay, he looked really good in the NPB. Probably bumped that up maybe 2 points in Major League Baseball, I'd imagine. Right. So it's probably like a 4-ish ERA in Major League Baseball. Oh, that's cool, Steve. Congratulations. So, so if we got Izak, we'd have him for 2 years. Yeah, that's exactly it. Next year's free agent class is really weak. It is pretty weak, actually. What would it take? Yeah, see, so Gustavo, you're in the right place because that's the entire purpose of today's video. I just wanted to start by talking about the guy that the Red Sox just signed. Again, we're going to do a more in-depth video on Kyle Keller tomorrow, mostly because, again, you go back to this conversation right here where there's actual layout for what his major league contract will look like. And usually when that happens, it's because the Red Sox, to some degree, believe that he could legitimately have a chance of making a roster at some point this season. How long in live stream for? Probably till like 8:30-ish. I've been doing like 8.5-ish on the offseason. Okay, so let's talk about this. So the whole goal of today's video, trade values. The whole goal of today's video is to try and figure out exactly what it's going to take for the Red Sox to actually pull off one of these moves. Oh, that's sick, Prodigy. Congratulations, man. Oh, here we go, these bobbleheads again. All right, so who do we want to start with, chat? Because I think these are all going to be pretty in-depth conversations. I think like we're not just going to be like, oh, here's the package. What do we do with it? So do we want to start with Nico Hoerner, Isaac Paredes? Is there someone else you guys have been talking about? Isaac, Keller. I just like Kettel's the perfect answer, right? Keller is the perfect answer. But it's not going to happen. Isaac. All right, we'll start with Isaac because Eli's spamming it. So is GTA. We'll start with Isaac Paredes and go from there. So we'll start with kind of what we know, at least right now. Wait, where is Houston? Am I going crazy? A, B, C, D, F, G, H. Oh, I'm an idiot. I was going Houston. We're not getting Keller. I agree. What do I think of I don't know enough, to be honest with you, Steven, about basketball to tell you whether that's a good or bad trade. There's a star man waiting in the sky. Too far, Eric. Too far. Nah, cool. All right. I don't know why I keep moving my mic out. It's because this keyboard's way bigger than it was before. Yoenis Cespedes. Didn't Yoenis Cespedes get dropped? So, yeah, we could talk about CJ Abrams, too. Let me write this down. So, we're going to talk about CJ Abrams. I don't. Do I have a pen on me? Yeah, I do. Oh, Yoenis or Yoelin? I was thinking of the Red Sox prospect Yoelin. Again, I think Bryce Terang, I don't think he has any chance of being moved, but I'll put him on here just. And then Nico Hoerner. Okay. Framber, Valdez. There's no reason to get Framber. I mean, him and Suarez were the same pitcher essentially. All right, so let's. For the love of God, can I? Thank you. All right. Where are you? There's Isaac Paredes. So the interesting part about Isaac Paredes is when you throw him into this conversation. I agree. Versatility. So when you throw him into this conversation, right? It's not like you're looking at Isaac Paredes and you're going, man, how are the Red Sox ever going to afford this, right? The problem with Isaac Paredes is more so about a conversation of what the Red Sox or how the Red Sox match up with the Houston Astros. Because right now, The Astros need an outfielder and they need a left-handed pitcher, right? Now, the Red Sox have both of those. But, you know, they were sitting here and they were like, on Jarren Duran. They really wanted Wilyer Abreu. Wilyer is worth double, more than double, at least on this, right? And I think in general, I think that makes sense, right? Home run power, Gold Glove defense, a ton of years of arbitration. Makes sense that Wilyer Abreu is worth almost double of Isaac Paredes. Now, this right here would be a bad trade by the Boston Red Sox, right? Because they sit there and they're like, hey, we're going to give up our probably biggest home run hitter at the moment in Wilyer Abreu, right? We're going to give up this guy, and we're going to take in Isaac Paredes, who's going to also give you home runs, but he's going to give you home runs from the right-hand side. That doesn't make a whole bunch of sense, at least in my mind, right? Now, the other problem with this is that if you go down here and they're like, hey, we also want a Conley early. Well, that also is going to be a bit of an overpay, right? So the problem is finding a way not only for the Red Sox to come to, or Houston to come to some sort of, hey, this kind of fits what we need here, right? Excuse me. This kind of fits what we need here. And for the Red Sox to be like, okay, this actually does make our team better, is finding actual prospects that are going to be able to do that, right? So if they're sitting on Wilyer Abreu and a Conley early or Peyton Tolley, which is absolutely insane, right? Could let's see if I could find a Kyle Harrison. Like, do we start with a Kyle Harrison? You know what I mean? Like, okay, so they get their lefty, right? Maybe they can make Kyle Harrison into an everyday starter. I mean, the potential is still there. There's just not a lot of room for the Red Sox to fit Kyle Harrison into their roster, right? And then the conversation gets a little, oh, there's Yoellen. I thought Yoellen got dropped. The question actually after this is, in my opinion, how do you get up to that sort of 12 million mark, right? Like, it's not going to be like Christian Campbell. I don't think you put Christian Campbell. Like, I don't think the Red Sox would be comfortable putting Christian Campbell on here. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of Red Sox fans are going to sit there and be like, go, trade him, right? This is fine. What's up, Cody? But to me, I think the Red Sox rightfully are sitting there saying, look, the kid's, 23 years old? He had one professional year of baseball, and then we threw him in, and we messed that up. If we could find a way to rectify that and actually build him up the way that we were originally planning on doing it, then I think he's going to be a solid player. And you know what? I don't disagree with him. So here's the problem, right? It is you can't really, like, between the Red Sox, this is why there's been such a holdup, right? It's not just that the Astros don't want to move this guy. It's that the Red Sox are having a really tough time matching up. Now, could you do something like this where, okay, they do want Wilyer Abreu and the Red Sox are sitting there saying, if we have to, we'll give him away. But again, I don't think the Red Sox are going to want to trade Wilyer Abreu, but let's try a Conley early, right? Conley early, again, another guy I'd imagine the Red Sox don't want to trade, but is a little bit more movable because you've got Peyton Tolley, because you picked up Ranger Suarez, and because of the fact that you've got guys like Kyson Witherspoon, Juan Valera right behind him with a whole bunch of other young pitchers that could potentially even be top 100 guys by the end of the year. So you sit here with this, it's like, okay, well, can the Astros come up to meet Conley early? Right? It's a little bit interesting. Where's, you look around here and it's like, okay, is there a guy in here that you could say like Brian Abreu? Is this a guy that, if this was the package, would the Red Sox be okay with? Brian Abreu, top 10, 15-ish bullpen name in baseball? But then it's like, okay, with the Astros are sitting there saying, we want Wilyer Abreu and Conley early for Isaac Paredes. Well, if they want both of those guys for Isaac Paredes, and the Red Sox are sitting there like, no, Conley early is worth at least Isaac Paredes and then some, right? Then it's a tough conversation because you don't have a middle ground here. And this is the problem. Right? This is the problem. Is that you don't have a real true, like, transition period here for finding a middle ground, right? It's just sort of, it is what it is. You know what I mean? The other thing, I saw someone put in the Massa contract. Like the problem with the Massa contract is that you look at the Astros here, right? Roster resource, Astros. Look at the Astros, and it's like, okay, where are they going to put Masataka Yoshida? You know what I mean? They've got Yordan Alvarez at DH. I mean, Jesus Sanchez is a guy they probably don't want to start every day, but you know, you got Jake Myers, you've got Zach Cole, like they have an outfield. Not to mention, you know, Jose Altuve could play right or left field if they really need him to. Right? So you don't, like, it'd be very difficult for the Astros to find an actual spot for him unless they do value him more than they value, you know, I'd imagine they probably value him more than they value Jesus Sanchez. Jake Myers, they definitely want to keep in center field for the defense. You know, Zach Cole was a top 25 prospect for him. Probably a guy you want to hang on to. So unless you want to put Zach Cole in right field, Jesus Sanchez kind of bye-bye, right? And then you come here with the Red Sox and you're like, hey, man, listen, we'll give you Conley early if you're willing to take on. Where the hell is Massa? Massa's at the bottom of this thing, huh? If you're willing to take on, let's say half, right? What's he owed? $36 million? That sounds right. We'll take on $18 million here. And now you're kind of looking at it, right? But again, if this was what was put on the table, do you think the Red Sox bite at this? I mean, it gets him out of the Masataka Yoshida contract, but like it would essentially be straight up Isaac Paredes for Conley early, and that's a tough conversation to have. Now, what this would do, in my opinion, a big thing that this would do is it would allow you to hold on to every single one of your outfielders, right? You wouldn't have to worry about Wilyer Abreu wasn't put as a top 10 right fielder in baseball. That's insane. So the positive with this is that if you were to move Masataka Yoshida and eat an entire year of his salary, right, you would open up that DH spot. It would allow you to keep Duran, Wilyer, Cedon, and Roman Anthony. You just sort of cycle them through that DH spot, right? A lot of Red Sox fans are going to say no to this, but here's the problem we're going to run into for a majority of this stream, is we are going to continuously put packages together, and everyone's going to continuously say, no. Right? No, this is too much to give up. But that's the problem here. That's the type of situation you're in right now. Right? The situation you're in right now is whoever you get, you are going to have to overpay for. It's just quite simply the situation the Red Sox have put themselves in. Because if you come into this regular season and Romy Gonzalez and David Hamilton or Romy Gonzalez and Nick Sogard or whoever are your legitimate second baseman and you're relying solely on Marcelo Meyer, who's had, 81 games maximum at any level in professional baseball here without getting injured? You're relying a lot on too many variables there. Too many variables. What if the Astros send us Correa plus cash? I think Correa has a no trade clause in here, so I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he'll say yes to that. Listen, Devin, I've been on the trade for Xander train for a year now, and no one listens to me. I would be very down for it. I'd be very down for it. I think he'd be much better. Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people are going to say, versatility, but I'm cool with letting Xander rot on the bench role for like $7 to $10 million a year and just sort of be like a, eventually like a platoon or whatever, 3 or 4 years down the road for the last 3 years of his contract. If it meant for the next 3 years, you're getting that everyday second baseman. So this is a problem you're running into with Isaac Paredes, right? Is that there's not really a true like, hey, there's a perfect lineup here. There's not really a true, okay, if we just put these guys on the table, the Red Sox say yes, the Astros say yes. So it's just not a perfect scenario here, right? But the problem with Cutter, and I've seen a couple people say this, let's just trade Crawford, and it would line up. The problem is the Astros aren't really looking for right-handed. Like if you go to their depth right now, especially on the pitching side of things here, it's all righties. You know what I mean? Like, and it's some potentially high value righties too. It's like Tatsuya Imai, like Lance McCullers could potentially be really good. I know he wasn't great last year, but you got Hunter Brown in there. Christian Javier was at one point very good. Like, you got a couple of younger players in here that are just breaking through too. Like, they don't need another sort of middle of the road, 3 or 4 type reliever / starter in Cutter Crawford. If they're going to trade a guy for a pitcher, it's going to be for a young lefty that they could develop and sort of put alongside a Hunter Brown, a Tatsuya Imai, these kind of guys here. So I personally don't think the idea of Cutter Crawford makes any sense here, even though the values line up a little bit more than if you were to add in a Tanner Houck, Conley Early or Peyton Tolley. And again, see, this is the problem, right? The only upside I see with Izak is he's pull happy, which will play at Fenway. I've made a video personally on why I like Izak. I like Izak because I think, being 28-ish, you're getting sort of the prime of his abilities in terms of statistically. 2, I think he gets on base a lot more than people are giving him credit for. I mean, the strikeouts would still be a problem, right? You'd strike out. Like, at this point, you're not getting a guy who's going to be an incredibly low strikeout guy unless you do something that we're going to talk about in a second. But if you were to get Izak, like, he would get on base for you. He'd hit you probably 25-ish home runs, potentially even 30 if he gets a full healthy season. It's an interesting conversation with Izak. I think there's a lot of positives, especially offensively. It also kind of solidifies your defense. And on top of that, too, you could kind of play, if the Red Sox are hell-bent on, if you're kind of hell-bent on, Marcel Meyer being third base, Izak can play second base. And he was actually a pretty decent defensive second baseman. You know what I mean? You only have him for 2 years, so age isn't that big a deal. You're right. It's not like you're signing this guy for 5 years. But when you're talking about what specific 2 years you're getting, I think getting, 28, 29 of the statistical peak being 27 to 30 is pretty solid. You know what I mean? Yeah, Paredes doesn't strike out a ton. I understand that. But he's not like a Nico Hoerner or a Luis Ariz, which we're going to talk about in a second. No. Versatility, you're misunderstanding me. I didn't say that Izak Paredes' defense last year was good. I said when he had played second base in the past, his defense was solid. Like, if you go back to his defensive play at third base, he's not great, right? And I'm not trying to fight anyone on that. It was what? -3 defensive runs saved, -2 fielding value. My point was at second base here, it's pretty decent, right? This was his largest sample size in 22. It was 2 outs above average, 2 fielding run value. So, if you're worried about the defense, just put him at second base. He's got the entirety of spring training to sort of get back into the swing of being a second baseman. It's clear that he could potentially do that, was my point. And he has done it in the past for basically, half a season? Less? What's 279 divided by 9? We'll just do 280 because that's 2/3 innings. Yeah. So it was 30 games, but it was a pretty solid 30 games here. And then overall, what's that? Probably if this was 30, probably 60 or 70 games here total at second base. And it was pretty decent numbers. You know what I mean? For third base, you'd be risking it a lot. And I understand that. But second base is a little bit different. So we'll kind of see, if the Red Sox do go for Izak, if that's going to be something they do. But again, the whole conversation we got to talk about is can they line up? Can they actually line up? Now, the second player that we're talking about in today's video, what's more likely to happen? A trade for a second baseman, Campbell at second, or Meyer at second? What's up, Seuss? If anything, Prodigy, it's probably Campbell at second, trade Marcelo at second. It doesn't seem like the Red Sox really want Campbell at second base. Now, let's talk about Nico Hoerner. The other sort... Man, sorry, chap. The other sort of... oh, my God, I forgot my water. The other sort of bigger name attached to the Boston Red Sox. Now, the problem with looking at them on baseball trade values is that the Boston Red Sox are going to have to pay way more than the perceived on-paper value for Nico Hoerner. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, he's been described by the GM, by Dansby Swanson, by Ian Happ as sort of a Alex Bregman type personality in the clubhouse, right? The Cubs absolutely love this guy. They love this guy. $5 super chat from Mike. Humor with the Ketel Marte trade, Romy and Cutter. Mike, I appreciate the $5. We will put it in at some point, dude. That's not even going to get remotely close, unfortunately. Not going to get remotely close. But I appreciate the $5 super chat. Thank you. We'll put it in at some point just to show you. But anyways, so one, the Cubs value this guy very, very highly. Two, they have absolutely no reason to trade this guy. I understand they have Matt Shaw, Bregman, and Hoerner for 2 positions. Right? And they got to figure out how the hell they're going to fit 3 guys in 2 positions. But they also have a little bit of an outfield, right? They could move Matt Shaw, who's had time to figure out the outfield, into the outfield. Then your options are kind of figured out, right? Or because Nico Hoerner's only here for 1 more year, and if the Cubs don't plan on getting him back and are just willing to take the qualifying offer on him, why don't we just put this guy on the bench and make Matt Shaw utility infielder? Get Alex Bregman off his feet a little bit, help him stay healthy. And then next year, we'll figure out Bregman at third or Matt Shaw at second or vice versa, right? So I appreciate that, Austin. Thank you. So they're in no position to really go out and say, hey, man, we are going to trade Nico Hoerner. They're in a position to sit here and field some offers and say, hey, man, if something blows us away, then we are going to trade for Nico. Then we are going to trade Nico Hoerner. Now, from what we've heard, we know that they want young left-handed pitching. Shocking, right? So, you go back to that same conversation. Is it Conley Early or is it Peyton Tolley? In my opinion, Conley Early is the guy I trade if I'm going to trade anybody. In terms of those top guys, right? This is probably where you're starting in terms of a conversation for Nico Hoerner. Now, that doesn't mean it's ending there, right? The other thing they want is a top prospect. Now, top prospect, a little bit subjective, right? Because we could say a guy like Mikey Romero is a top 20 prospect for the Red Sox, or a guy like Miguel Blaze was at one point a top prospect for the Red Sox. You could sit here and kind of make some, arguments for who, like Yoel Cespedes, right? What determines surplus on this site? So they go by fielding value. They calculate a player's fielding value, and then they add in their salary, and then it's fielding average fielding value minus salary, and that's your total value here. So you see, if you look, 10.4 minus 4.7, 5.7. Not a perfect science, but relatively okay, right? So let's throw in, let's just, for the hypothetical here, even though I really don't want them to trade Mikey Romero, let's say that this is what gets it done. This is a hefty price, right? This is a hefty price to pay for 1 year of Nico Hoerner. Now, the thing is, if the Red Sox are able to get him in here and sign him for, let's say, a 5-year, $150 million deal like they just offered Alex Bregman, let's say it starts next year or whatever, then I think you sit here and you're like, okay, this is worth it. We've talked about this before, right? Where big market teams do this sometimes. Where big market teams sit here and they say, we're going to put our balls to the wall, we're going to trade for a guy on 1 year, and we're going to hope that either we can extend him or if we can't extend him, we're going to try and get him back in free agency. The Mets just did it with Freddie Peralta. We've seen it a few times, right? And obviously Freddie's a much different player than Nico Hoerner is. But if it's not going to be Conley Early for Nico Hoerner and Mikey Romero or someone of that similar caliber here, you're probably not getting Nico Hoerner. And that's the problem with Nico, right? We've talked about the problem with Izak. The problem with Nico Hoerner is different, right? Because with Izak, it's like the Astros know what they want. It's just, can the Red Sox line up in a deal where they're comfortable? The Cubs don't really know what they want, right? They just want a big package. They just want a big package, and that's it. You know what I mean? Nico's not really worth $30 million a year, brother. He's absolutely worth close to probably $30 million. He'll probably get close to $30 million a year, I imagine. Like Bregman got what? Bregman got 30-ish million a year, somewhere in there. I mean, deferrals can obviously be a part of this, but you're talking about a similar WAR player. The only difference is that Nico Hoerner doesn't hit home runs, right? If Nico Hoerner hit home runs, he'd be a superstar in Major League Baseball. Because he doesn't, he's sitting here as sort of a guy who's going to kind of go under the radar. But you talk about he had 6.2 WAR this season, right? I mean, it's a solid OPS plus. He's going to be a league average hitter for you, and the only reason he's not a relatively, I mean, really above league average hitter is because he doesn't have any power. Like, look, you look at the power numbers, and it's nothing super crazy, right? Most of the years it's under 4. But because he makes a ton of contact, because he draws walks when he needs to, and because he steals bases, along with having Gold Glove, like I'm talking best defensive player in infield in baseball, some can argue, he's a really, really valuable player. So yeah, I think you're looking at a $30-ish million guy, especially coming into his age 29 season in free agency. But can you sit here and genuinely look me in the eyes and say this is worth overpaying because the Red Sox are going to be able to extend this guy, or the Red Sox are going to be able to bring this guy in out of free agency if he goes to free agency, right? No, there should be no faith in the Red Sox to do that because the Boston Red Sox just lost Alex Bregman, who they were way higher on. Right? Way higher on. I mean, Craig Breslow at the deadline was telling us how Alex Bregman helped him at the deadline. He just had a career year? Not really, dude. Not really. Like, he was just relatively healthy. Like, this 2023 was only a half WAR less. Very similar. You know what I mean? 3.7 WAR. For like, being a 4 WAR player is about $30 million in Major League Baseball. Easily. And this guy's pretty consistently a 4 WAR player here. Over the last 4 seasons, when he started playing real-life baseball here, like every year here, it's 19.6. He's 0.4 WAR off of being a 4 WAR player every single year. You know what I mean? Like, in 4 seasons, he had 255 strikeouts. There are guys in Major League Baseball who hit that in a year and a third. Like, he's a valuable player, especially with Gold Glove defense, especially with the fact that he could steal you easily 20 to 30. There was a 40-bag season in here in 1 year, right? Like, yeah, he's a great player. One of the more underrated players in baseball. So not only would you, like, and the other thing, too, is I think people to sit there and they're like, well, okay, come on. The Red Sox are looking for home run power. This guy is in home run power. Yeah, he's not. But if you put him at the number 1 spot in your lineup and you bump, let's say you bump Roman, you keep Roman at 2, you put probably Contreras at 3, I'd imagine. Then you go maybe Duran, probably Duran. Duran or Story at 3, flip-flop those guys at 4 and 5. Then you go Willier at 6, right? What you're doing is you're allowing everyone else to hopefully... Okay, wait a second, chat. Hold on. We need to talk about this for a second. Hold on. Let me hold on. Oops. That's not what I want to talk about, but that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that's absurd, but that's not what we're talking about. Is this still on the page? Yeah, it is. Hold on. I'm getting totally distracted. Look at this. We've got Jim or Joe. It's Jim talking about the Red Sox trade for Ronald Acuna. Pardon? Pardon? I don't even have the video up, but pardon? Anyways, chat, I got distracted. Jim Bailey. Thank you. For some reason I want to call him John, and I don't mean to, and I apologize, Jim, if you ever see this. I didn't mean to. But anyways, Nico Hoerner would be the answer. Nico Hoerner is the guy that you're looking for in terms of what the Red Sox need right now, especially after that pivot to defense. But are the Red Sox, it's not just us, right? Because we could sit here with talking about whether we like it or not. Ultimately, it becomes whether or not the Red Sox like it, right? And if you're the Red Sox sitting there after you just lost Bregman, after you just had to pivot off of Bregman, and now you're sitting in this conversation because of Bregman, that you're going to sit there and you're going to say, yeah, man, you know what? We're going to try that again, and this time we're going to be successful, right? You know what I mean? I don't know. With a 70% chance the Sox sign him, Oh, but I don't believe. I see. Yeah, I would do this. I would do this if the Red Sox, if we were comfortable with the Red Sox being able to actually extend him, right? Or not let him get to free agency, or even get to free agency and are comfortable thinking he could come back to the Red Sox. I just don't know that we're in a position to say that right now. And so for Nico Hoerner, that's the problem, right? Could I do an Acuna trade just for the fun of it? Brother. You would rather trade early for Shaw? See, I would rather Nico Hoerner. I would. I think Nico Hoerner fits better. I understand the Shaw thing. I am curious about one thing with Shaw. People talked about his second half a lot. Like, I'm curious to see how good the Matt Shaw was. I wouldn't make that trade even if you promised me a re-sign. Really? What's the reasoning for not wanting Nico Hoerner even with a re-sign? Yeah, dominating the minors, but you're looking to win now, right? The idea is you're looking to win now. I mean, he was good in the second half, 258, 317, 522. Most of his home runs came in the second half. But it was kind of just 1 month, right? It was sort of just like, it was like, August. You know what this reminds me of? This kind of reminds me of, no, it's not. It's a little bit different than Tristan Casas, because Tristan was consistent his rookie year, like here through here. These are like, yeah, you had one good month, and the rest of them were like, ooh, okay, cool, but that's 11 games. You want a guy to hit 280, put Massa in there? No, dude. Massa's totally different, I think. Massa's not a, you have to remember, he's an elite defensive player. You have to put that in there, right? Because Massa's a one-tool guy. He gets on base, right? Once in a while, he'll hit one out, but most of it, he gets on base. Nico gets on base, steals, and has an elite defensive ability. You know what I mean? Shaw is a better defender at second base. Thomas, that's not even remotely true. That's not even remotely true, dude. Like, do you just, like, no offense, but you just pulled that out your ass. Do the Cubs are just talking so much about Nico so they get more? Yeah, of course. Like, they're not going to trade him unless they are going to get a blowaway offer. And this right here is the blowaway offer. I don't think the Red Sox put this on the table. I'm not sure that they should, considering the fact that there's probably no like realistic opportunity for the Red Sox to extend him or pick him back up in free agency, because the Red Sox haven't been very good at going out and getting their guy. Would I consider? No, I wouldn't consider Luis Rengifo. The offense is solid in terms of Luis, but his defense is terrible. At this point, you need to figure out guys who are going to fit the defensive landscape a bit more. All right, so let's figure out where we're at. Isaac Paredes and Nico Hoerner are the two biggest names, right? They're the two biggest names that have been attached to the Boston Red Sox. The problem with Paredes is that Paredes is a guy who's going to, one, be difficult to match up with. Two, not a perfect fit defensively unless, again, the Red Sox look at those second base metrics. They say, we're comfortable putting him at second base every day, right? Nico Hoerner is different because Nico Hoerner is a guy who would fit really well into this, hey, we're going to be a pitching defense. We're going to be a pitching defense. We're going to be a athletic team. We're going to be a team that's going to just be better athletically than everybody. The problem with Nico is you have to blow him away for an offer. Now, okay, so let's move on. If those two aren't lining up, CJ Abrams is a name that you guys are mentioning now, but is also a name that's been mentioned on the trade market a little bit, right? The Giants tried to get him but couldn't match up on a deal. I think it was the Giants. I could be wrong on that, but I think I saw the Giants here. Let's take a look. Oh, not the Giants. I had the Giants on my mind here. Nationals. I always want to do this by city, and it's because a lot of places do it by city. These guys do it by... All right, so let's talk about CJ Abrams. The first thing we need to talk about with CJ Abrams is the actual fit, right? CJ would definitely help you in the power department, right? 20-ish home run guy. You know, if he's with the Red Sox and he's hitting more than 60 RBIs. Yeah, I think for sure he's hitting more than 60 RBIs. Steals a lot of bags. He's fast. You know, a lot of doubles too. And I'm curious to see what his spray chart looks like. Let's take a look at the spray chart too. He's a big pull guy, so that's something to pay attention to. You know what I mean? Like, you're talking about the doubles and the triples and all that stuff. You know, it's going to be interesting to see, okay, is this a guy that can adjust to Fenway Park? Because, you know, some of these, and I'd imagine, you know, this doesn't look too far off of what the Red Sox would look like, but the baseball savant page is not fantastic. You know what I mean? Like, he hits a lot of home runs, yeah, but he chases a lot of pitches. Doesn't strike out a ton as much as you would think for having what? 125 strikeouts last year in 144 games. The interesting thing with CJ is he's kind of in that Matt Shaw category where it's like you're buying him or you're trading for him because of the fact that you know you want him to develop within your system as these guys who are also rookies develop out of it. But with CJ, I think the biggest thing you need to remember is, again, you go back to the defense, man. It's not good, right? It was -11 defensive runs saved this year. It was second in outs above average here. If you go to leaderboards, fielding run value, you go to shortstops, and we take a look at the worst defensive shortstops. It was Bo Bichette, it was CJ Abrams, and then it was Crawford and Story. Right. So what would that look like at second base? I don't know. Right. I don't think he doesn't have any appearances at second base. I mean, he's got 13 games over there. It was good, right? But it's only 13 games. Is this an option? I don't know. Right. If he's available, I would think it would be kind of stupid for the Red Sox to ignore it, obviously, right? I'd imagine I agree versus I imagine he'd probably be a better defensive second baseman than what the Boston Red Sox are looking for, or what the Boston Red Sox would get at shortstop from him. If you go to what he's valued at, it's $52.9 million, which makes sense considering the season he just came off of. What does that look like in terms of, hey, what do the Nationals need, right? I'd imagine if you're looking and you're the Nationals right now, you just trade Mackenzie Gore. Right, you didn't have any pitching to begin with, and then you traded Mackenzie Gore. So now, who's your ace? You know what I mean? Like, who's the top guy? Is it Josiah Gray? I don't know, right? You don't have anybody. So it would behoove the Nationals to probably ask for some pitching, which makes sense, right? And again, you know, they're not like, I wouldn't say they're anywhere close to being a competitive team anytime soon. It feels like they're rebuilding the rebuild with the new CBO in there. We're going to talk about that in a second. So that's obviously going to play a part in this. So do you sit here with some of your lefty options here in terms of the Red Sox and say, would we be willing to give any of those guys up for a guy like CJ Abrams? Well, let's put it in and have a conversation about it, right? I go back to probably Conley early. Is a guy like Kyson Witherspoon more important? The thing with this is that you're going up against Paul Tobani, right? So, Eli, thank you so much for becoming a member of the standing room, man. I appreciate that. Paul Tobani knows a whole lot about the Red Sox farm system. So he's going to have a specific, if the Red Sox want to deal with him, he's going to have a specific list. You know what I mean? He's going to have you're not going to be able to trick him into doing anything. I would imagine you're probably looking at something like this, right? You're probably looking at Conley Early, Franklin Arias, Peyton Tolley, Franklin Arias, probably in that range, right? Two top-ish 100 guys in order to get CJ Abrams on your team. So there's your conversation right there, right? Are you willing to give up two of your top 100 guys? I mean, this essentially guts your farm, right? You'd be down to two top 100 guys left. You would have the only other guys coming up that are potentially top 100 players are all position players, are all pitchers. You don't really have any sort of position player depth in the minor leagues anymore, outside of like Mikey Romero and some of these guys that are, not top 100 guys, but could potentially be fairly decent. You know what I mean? What's up, Dennis? So again, putting CJ Abrams in this lineup doesn't make you. I mean, I think it makes you a better team, especially if he can improve his defense. And the guy's only 24 years old, so you're talking about getting him for 25, 26, 27, 26, 27, 28. Yeah, 25, 26, 27. He's gonna be a free agent at 27 years old. But you sit here with that, and it's like, okay, is this a guy that you're willing to do that? Is it, right? Like the cost is really big. And again, the other thing we got to mention with Paul Sobani here is that, yes, he just traded, I just said his name too, and now it's escaping me. I want to say Gonzalez. It's not Gonzalez. Lefty. Come on, Corbin. Gore. Thank you. Mackenzie Gore. He just did that, but does he really want his second biggest trade he's made as a executive for the Nationals to be with the Boston Red Sox? I would imagine it's going to be fairly difficult for the Red Sox to get something legitimately out of him, right? Because it's an ego thing a little bit, where you're sitting there and you're like, I don't want my second big trade as a Nationals CBO or GM or whatever he is over there to be a trade that everyone thinks I lost to the Boston Red Sox. I don't see how this would be a losing situation, to be honest with you, right? The Nationals get a stud lefty, and then they get a shortstop who's going to be a dog, at least defensively, and probably contact-wise too. We don't really know what that power is going to look like in the major league level for Franklin Arias, but he's going to be a year away, right? So you probably say yes to this, but there's also part of Paul Tobani who's sitting there saying C.J. Abrams is one of the I would say probably faces of the Nationals. It's not like they have a ton of guys, right? It's like Wood, and then it's probably Abrams. Right, Dylan Cruz was decent last year. I don't think he was that bad, but I don't think he's a face. And for the Red Sox, you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, so it's not significantly like. Here's the thing with C.J. Abrams, right? It's not like the Red Sox would be sitting there being like, this is a guaranteed. We're going to throw him at second base. We're good, right? Our offense is set. They would have to teach C.J. Abrams second base in the entirety of spring training. It would quite literally be just spring training. You know what I mean? So that's the other situation here. And if he was kind of tough defensively, again, going back to this, at shortstop last year and really throughout his career, right? I don't think he even had a season at any point where he was a good defensive second baseman here. I don't know, dude. Like, I sit here with CJ, and he wasn't good last year. He's just never been a good defensive shortstop. And he's not it's not like he's like Wood here, right? James Wood is a dog. When you look at these percentiles, he's a dog. CJ Abrams just sort of hits the ball out. A guy he's kind of one of those guys that the underlying metrics don't match up to what he's been doing on the field, right? Like a guy who hits 20 home runs consistently is weirdly in this category for me, but it's definitely an interesting name, I suppose, right? And certainly someone to look at. If he's available on the trade market again, I think the Red Sox, due diligent wise, need to kind of talk about this guy, but at the same time too, I don't know that he should be kind of top of the list, I don't know if he should be at the top of the list, especially because it's going to cost a Conley Early or a Franklin Arias. So again, we'll recap kind of where we're at here. I'm gonna go grab water real quick. I'll be right back. So we'll kind of recap where we're at, right? With Paredes again, we'll talk about him again. With Paredes, it's just simply about where the Red Sox and the Astros actually match up and if it's worth it for either team. With Nico, it's about, okay, are the Red Sox willing to take that chance? And if they are they confident or able to actually extend Nico Hoerner before he hits free agency? And then with CJ, I just think there's a lot of question marks for what the Red Sox are looking for, especially if it's going to cost a Conley Early or a Franklin Arias. All right, Chad, I'm going to go grab some water real quick. I'll be back in 2 seconds. And then after that, we'll have a conversation about maybe some underrated guys. Like if you guys want to throw some names out, we can have a conversation about that. I do owe Mike at least putting in Romy, Duran, and Crawford for Keller. I don't think it'll be interesting. I don't think it'll be something that the Arizona Diamondbacks would even consider, but we'll put it in there because of the $5 super chat. All right, chat. I'll be back in a second. Ugh. You guys ever tried talking for an hour straight? Not as easy as it looks, I'm telling you. Not as easy as it looks. All right. Where were we? Ketel Marte, right? So, okay. The big standing point with Ketel Marte is that the Arizona Diamondbacks don't want to trade him anymore. Right? So in order to get him, you'd have to give quite literally everything they want and more. Now, Mike, thank you to the $5 super chat once again, had these three guys in here. It's probably close value-wise, I'd imagine, but in terms of actual, hey, are the Diamondbacks going to take this deal? They're not. Right? They're absolutely not. The reason for this is, one, I think Duran would have to be the centerfold for this. I do. We know that the Diamondbacks really like Jarren Duran, and I think Duran would like Arizona, if we're being honest. But in terms of the other pieces, right? Cutter Crawford, again, another guy. Do they need it? Do they need Cutter Crawford? I don't think so. And then Romy, it's like, right? To me, at least personally, if you're going to put in an offer for Ketel Marte at this point in the offseason, especially after, the Arizona Diamondbacks kind of publicly put him off the board, it would have to be, I would imagine it'd have to be this, right? Hi, Mom. Everyone say hello to my mother. She's joined the chat. It would have to be this, right? It would have to be. And I think this is kind of where it would start, right? And really, in order to actually sort of push it over the finish line, I think you need to add something else in here, right? I don't know what that would actually be. Would it be like a Henry Godbout? Maybe. Like you'd have to add in one of those prospects like that. And then you're really, like, the only way is my point here with Duran is to, like, blow them out of the water. Blow them out of the water. And I just don't see the Red Sox doing that at this point. And to be honest with you, I don't know that the Diamondbacks even if you blow them out of the water, I'm not entirely sure that the Red Sox would be interested, or the Diamondbacks would be interested in doing this, because it took the Red Sox so long to actually come up and meet them. Right? If you had signed, here's the problem when you run into the situation of sitting here and trying to wait out Alex Bregman, right? Is that options dry up while you're doing that. The Red Sox kept playing this. We talked about this all the time. The Red Sox kept playing this will they, won't they game with Bregman because they wanted him on their terms. At no point were they willing to go up to Bregman's terms, even in the end, right? Even in the end, it was, well, you're only going to sign here and we're going to not give you that no trade clause because we're the Boston Red Sox and we know you want to be here. Right? It, all the way to the very bitter end, the Red Sox refused to go truly to Alex Bregman's terms. And what that did is it closed all these other doors. It closed the Ketel Marte door. It makes it much more difficult to go get a Nico Hoerner. You didn't blow the Astros away with an offer, so now they got you over the barrel for Isaac Paredes, right? You couldn't pivot to Bichette because all of a sudden you had all these other teams like maybe you had a run at it. Maybe you could have gone and gotten Bichette, but the problem is, again, you waited too long, and now all of a sudden the Phillies got interested. And ultimately, the Mets, who lost out on Kyle Tucker, got mad, right? So, and now you're sitting here, and specifically with Ketel Marte, if you had just sat there in what, December, early December, and said, look, Bregman, we're going to meet your terms, and that's it, right? And you sign him or you don't. Okay, right? He says, no, I'm good. You go, okay, fine. Now you pivot, and you go and you get a Ketel Marte, and then you sign Ranger Suarez, and all of a sudden you're sitting pretty. But the problem is because you didn't do that, now you're sitting here in February, and you're like, boy, I wonder if the Arizona Diamondbacks would have any conversation about Ketel Marte. And the answer is probably not, right? Unless, again, this deal right here, probably got it done 2 months ago. Right? This deal right here probably got it done 2 months ago. But the problem is you're not 2 months ago. So now you got to add in something else. You got to blow them away. And honestly, I don't even know if Henry Godbout is that name that's going to blow them away with it. I'd imagine it probably have to be someone a bit more notable, a bit more publicly available. I'd imagine, right? Maybe another pitcher. Maybe you have to throw in a Marcus Phillips or a, someone of that category. I can't think off the top of my head. Juan Valera, Anthony Ianson, right? Like there's a few guys that you potentially could throw in here now that maybe make it better. But at this point, it's like, what are you going to do? You know? They don't want to move him. Harrison, maybe, but I don't know that Harrison's in that same category. He had a sweet Volvo? Hell yeah. It's a Boston way. We could have had Betts, Xander, Bregman, and we struck out early instead of trying to wait them out. Yeah. Yep. 100%. You could have extended Xander Bogaerts, and I will debate everyone until I'm red in the face. Xander Bogaerts, everyone sits there and is like, yeah, Xander was an overpay. Of course Xander was an overpay. But he was begging the entire, 2022 season? Was that what it? Yeah, it was the 2022 season because he got Massa in 23. Right? If you had just given him a fair deal, and it wouldn't have even been market value deal. He didn't want a market value deal. He wanted to be with the Red Sox. If you had just done that, then he would have been on this team. And none of these problems would have, by the way, no, I know, Verstilli. I'm going on a rant. You've led me down a rant. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just ranting. By the way, if you had kept Xander Bogaerts, none of these problems would be here, right? Because by this point, everyone would have realized, including Xander himself, that he's no longer a shortstop capable of talking every single day. Of playing every single day at shortstop, right? He would have moved over to second base. Marcelo would have gone to third base. Story would have sat at shortstop. And then potentially at some point you swap Xander and Marcelo, or Xander goes to third base, Marcelo goes to shortstop, Story goes to second base. You got the contact, you got the power. You're losing a ton of strikeouts because Xander doesn't strike out all that much. Even now at 33 years old, going into his age 33 season, like you sit there and it's like, guys, you messed that up. Right? I mean, obviously Mookie Betts is Mookie Betts, and that's always going to be an issue. But then you go back to Bregman, and it's like, dude, if you had just identified your player, said, look, what is it going to take to sign this deal right now, this second? Okay, cool. How about we bring that down $10 million and give you a no trade clause, and boom, you're signed? None of this is a problem, right? And it drives me absolutely crazy that we just sit here and do this. Anyways, India or Garcia. Sorry, Chad. I got on a rant. I will always rant about Xander Bogaerts on the Red Sox because, yes, Dennis. But again, I'm not talking about him on the Padres. I'm talking about his last year with the Red Sox. You could have signed him for a 5 to 6 year deal at age 30 years old for like $24 million a year, $25 million a year. Instead, he's playing in San Diego. And now it looks like a terrible contract. And I will say this to the day I'm dead. Xander, that contract doesn't look as bad if Xander Bogaerts is in the Red Sox uniform. I think he looks a lot better. in a Red Sox uniform. I think the park factors are hurting him a bit. And to be honest with you, I think too, I mean, you're starting to see him come back to form a bit last year, right? But I think his first year, he wanted to be a Red Sox player. He wanted to be a Red Sox for life, and the Red Sox didn't want him to do that. It was a tough adjustment for him. Maikel Garcia is not going anywhere. Tu asked him that. He just got extended, didn't he? Like quite literally like a month ago. Yeah, 5-year contract. Literally just got extended. He's not going anywhere. Jonathan India I wanted Jonathan India, actually. There's a video of me asking to trade for Jonathan India. Must have been the 23 offseason. I really like Jonathan India. I don't know that it's worth trading for him now, right? He's just not the player. Okay, so yeah, it was coming into the 23 season, I think. It was like one of my first videos, I think. Fair trade for Nico Hoerner, Kyle Harrison, Mike Romero, Patrick Sandoval, Hayden Mullins. The Cubs laughed that off. Like, seriously, they're like, yeah, we're good. What are my thoughts on Kyle Keller from Japan? We're going to talk about that tomorrow, Mark. Not like a breaking news type conversation, but definitely someone we'll talk about in a video. Overall, could be interesting. I talked about him a little bit at the beginning of this one, Mark. If you want to just rewind to the very beginning, it's right there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of comes of him. But anyways, as I live and breathe here, yeah, he just. I mean, India would be kind of relatively interesting, but like not a good defender. I mean, he was fine in 24, wasn't he? He was decent in 24. Yeah, 2024 was the only year where he was like, all right, yeah, you could see this guy being an everyday second baseman. I mean, dude, it was so bad last year defensively. They had this guy in the outfield, right? Right, you know what I mean? Like that's how bad his defense was. Is the Kansas City Royals, who were a mid-baseball team, said, brother, we cannot have you playing here every day. We're going to try at third base. That didn't work. We're going to try in the outfield. That didn't work. To be fair, it's kind of tough to go from second base to third base to the outfield in one season. But, man, oh, man, oh, man. Were the chances? I don't know. That's kind of why we're talking about it today, right? It's kind of why we're talking about all these options today. Like, we've gone through what? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the fifth option we're talking about here. You know? That's why I wanted to do this video. What's it actually going to take? Now, with Jonathan India, I would imagine not much, right? I'd imagine the chances of getting India are probably pretty high if the Red Sox want him. But then you have to have a conversation of, do the Red Sox want him? How's Nazan? Nazan has been struggling quite a bit in minor league baseball. He's been struggling a lot with specifically the swing and miss. He's a lot of swing and miss for a guy I think he got up to high A last year. I mean, he's still young, so we'll see kind of what he becomes. But Hamilton over India, yeah. I think a platoon at second base would maybe be a bit more beneficial than Jonathan India. I would argue that. I think he's a decent home run guy. He's interested, but so yeah. So anyways, we've talked about 5 players here in today's stream. 5, right? Ketel Marte, CJ Abrams, Nico Hoerner, Isaac Paredes, Jonathan India. Every single one of them has had issues. And it's not issues, some of them not issues in terms of fit, some of them just simply issues in terms of trade, right? And this is why I wanted to make this video, because I think, I've been sitting here and a lot of people have been sitting here. Let me say, just do it, right? Just make the trade. And it's just so much more complicated than that. And my point of this live stream is to have you guys understanding that like, it's all the Red Sox fault. Right, like the Red Sox have put themselves in this situation where either they wildly overpay for Nico Hoerner and pray that either you can extend him or bring him back. You overpay for Isaac Paredes and figure out how to work with him defensively. You pay regular value for CJ Abrams, but then you got to pray to God he could be a good second baseman. You buy low on a Jonathan India or an Xavier Edwards. Like I saw Play Tessie had a. Specifically, it was Sammy James. Specifically, Sammy James, who's been kind of all over this guy, Xavier Edwards. Interesting name, right? Because he's a really solid defensive player, or was last year. Let me say that. Doesn't strike out a lot. Walks kind of a decent amount here. This is kind of like if the Red Sox wanted Nico Hoerner, but they wanted more, like if they were going to pay a lot of money or not a lot of money, a lot of prospect capital to get Nico Hoerner, and didn't feel comfortable with Nico Hoerner being a player that is going to be here for a while. This is probably who you're going to go with, right? Xavier Edwards, and just hope that he develops into that Nico Hoerner type player, because you can see it's kind of in there, you know. Like he's not a big power guy, low strikeouts, decent walks. How many stolen bases did he have last year? They had 30 stolen bases, right? Like this would be if you were to have a conversation of, hey, is there anyone younger that you could pay similar value for Nico Hoerner that could develop into Nico Hoerner? This is what you're looking at. I know it's off topic, but I see Wally got arrested on truck day. No, I did not see that. Could someone like tag me in a Twitter post or something? I want to see that. Folks, Xavier's like their best player though, so he'd be hard to get. Oh, I agree. Like I'm not saying every single, but this is my point, right? Every single option is imperfect because of what it would take to get them. You know what I mean? Like let's throw Xavier Edwards in here and see just what his value is. And again, I Robbie and others like live or die by the baseball trade values website. I'm not a live or die by the trade values website. I think ultimately there are a lot of nuances with situations and roster fit specifically, not just their value on paper in terms of a player. But although I will say versatility, I think they're right. Yuri Perez is their best overall player. All right, so Xavier Edwards goes there. They traded away a lot of pitching, so again, I'd imagine you're probably like to me, it feels like the same package fits, right? It feels like the same package would be something that, but the Marlins are kind of tricky to deal with. They really highly value these players. You're gonna have to overpay to get any of these guys, like Justin Gonzalez. Oops. Like this probably gets it done. You know what I mean? Player, not pitcher. Yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying. What's that guy's name? Kyle Stowers is probably their best overall pitcher. But this is like, again, you're probably looking at this, right? Which is similar to what you would have had to give up to get Nico Hoerner. And now so you trade for him. You say, look, we're going to get the younger version of Nico Hoerner. We're going to hope that he develops actually into Nico Hoerner, right? But again, Celtics fan, that's the problem. That's the problem, is every single trade you're going to say is way too much because that's just the reality of it. What gets a Nico Hoerner trade done? You're probably looking at Conley early and then a prospect. That's probably what you're looking at genuinely to get a Nico Hoerner trade done. And all this is letting Grissom get away? True. They trade Grisham this year? It was last year. Look at Robert Kraft, said it's very expensive. It's the worst financial implication since we own the team. I'm a fan first. That's on me. Oh. Tag me in the post. Okay, hold on, chat. I want to see. I want to see Nico or dude, why did they arrest Wally? What happened? They arrested our boy, chat. For what? What's the charge? Free my man, dude. What's going on here? Chat, I'm gonna make hashtag free Wally. This would be a fire t-shirt. If we just put this in like black and white and on the back of a t-shirt, free Wally above it. You think I get sued if I did that? That'd be such a fire t-shirt. Like imagine this in black and white. Oh my god, dude, it'd be sick. Yeah, dude, they're taking Wally out, Tyler. I know, but he's trying to steal something. Do it. John Henry had Wally arrested for trying to pack some extra baseball. True. John Henry had a strict budget for what they were doing. Oh, James Harden just got traded. John Henry had a strict budget. Oh yeah, I was a big fan of Von Grissom. I still think there's potential there, man. I could see him being an everyday player for the Angels. Would be really interesting to see if the Red Sox had kept Grissom and then had Campbell and Romy and David Hamilton and Nick Sogard for second base and like potentially platooning with Meyer at third base too. What that situation looks like, you know? John Henry, no. Here's the problem. Everyone always says John Henry sell the team. Here's the issue. John Henry's never going to sell the team. In fact, he's going to die, and then his shares of the team are either going to be bought up by people within FSG or they're going to be bought up in terms of shares. FSG will own the team potentially for a very long time. Right? Because all they have to do, even if John Henry dies as principal owner of the Boston Red Sox, is sell off his shares. One person doesn't need to buy the entirety of his shares to own the Boston Red Sox, right? A guy like, I don't know, let's say like this is totally hypothetical, but LeBron James owns a minority share in here, right? All he has to do is buy a little bit more. And yeah, you're right, Mike. His kids will probably get first dibs too, right? So even if John Henry sells the team, it's going to stay within here. Trade for Xander now? Dude, give me Xander immediately. Mark Cuban on the Red Sox? Hell yeah, that'd be a good one too. But again, it'd be tough, right? Unless Mark Cuban came in and bought. What does John Henry own? Probably like 51%, I'd imagine. It's probably a little bit less, actually. Um, like all he'd have to do is buy those. Who the hell would sell a printer that does nothing but print money? I'm saying if he died. Story for Xander straight up. Nah, I'm not doing that. Mikey Romero's a sleeper for the second half. I love Mikey, and I think he could potentially be a sleeper, especially if he keeps working, man. Story is sell high. Story's not a sell high. There's a reason. There's a reason Trevor Story opted into his contract. Even though Trevor Story had a great year last year, it wouldn't be selling high. I promise you. Mr. Wonderful buying the Red Sox, that'd be terrible. Talk about running the team just strictly to make money, dude. At least Mark Cuban wants to win. Chat, that Will Campbell, I Heart Drake May bobblehead just ain't happening. Are they paying 75% of the contract? Yeah, they pay. Well, I had them paying half, right? Because it'd be about 11-ish, I think it was, $1 million a year if they paid half the dollar amount. Right, for the Red Sox, you're talking about 11. And it's not 8 years; it's 7 years. You're talking about 11 million for 7 years. Xander right now is probably worth about 20 mil a year. I mean, like the AAV is not crazy off. He's just not the all-star that he was when he signed. You know what I mean? I like I don't know, dude. I'll make the argument again and again. Xander makes a lot of sense for the Red Sox right now. He does, even on a 7-year deal, because you're paying him 11 million a year. By the time he's fully like incapable of playing every single day, and you got to drop him down to a platoon bat, basically, maybe even just strictly like a platoon DH or just strictly a substitution guy by the end of his deal. Like Rob Refsnyder made what, $8 million last year, $7 million, somewhere around there. You're paying Xander $4 more million, and by the time you get to, what would it be? It'd be like 2032 probably by the time that starts happening. What are we going into? 26? No. It'd be like 2030 when Xander would probably have to be taken out of a full-time basis. $11 million for a bench guy is going to be pretty standard, you know? I don't know. And it wouldn't, like, again, if the Red Sox were willing to take on half of it, I'd imagine the Padres would be pretty interested on a fairly low cost. Obviously, you need to get something back. Yeah, I know. I just saw James Harden just got traded. So everything that has been said, it decided we trade early Romero for Nico and pray FSG is smart enough to sign him to an extension. Personally, I think low key, I still think there's an avenue in which the Red Sox can figure out Isaac Paredes without having to include Willie Abreu. That's a problem. Versatility. Cam Boozer is going to be a dog on the Rays. To me, that feels like the most realistic option. And the Red Sox sit there and they say, let's try him at second base again, because he was decent defensively over there, right? Yeah, I don't think he's going to win you a Gold Glove, but he's not going to be a liability defensively at second base, at least in my opinion, based on what he's done in the past at second base. That to me feels like the most realistic option for the Red Sox. Low key, I kind of love for them. Like I would hate to see Early and Romero go for Nico Hoerner, but I would also love to see the Red Sox say, you know what, we think Nico's the guy who's going to put us over the edge. We think Nico's the dude who's going to be the guy who, is the difference between the Red Sox making it to the first round of the wild card and making it to the ALCS or whatever. I'd love to see that, but to me. We've gone over, sorry, I'm just updating our list here. We've gone over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different players, 6 if you include Xavier Edwards. And none of them are a perfect trade for the Red Sox, right? Every single one of these, by the way, someone in this chat has said that's too much to give up. It's too much. And that's the problem, right? Is that for the Red Sox to do this, they're going to have to give up somebody that you want on this team. Overall, the Diamondbacks for Marte, better idea? I don't know, dude. I just don't think the Diamondbacks can be, unless the Red Sox are willing to go like Duran, Tolley, Arias to get Ketel Marte. I don't think the Diamondbacks are going to be okay with trading him at this point. You don't think you're a Nico away from World Series, though? I will say versatility. I think there's a chance you are. Right, and I think it's a realistic chance that you are a Nico Hoerner away. If you have pitching that's good enough, and I think more specifically what I mean by this is if, let's say we've got Willie Abreu with 30-ish, but again, this we'll talk about the problems with this in a second. But let's say you go 30 home runs with Willier. Let's say Story gives you another 20. Let's say Roman gives you 20, 23, 25. We'll say 25 on the plus side here. Let's say Contreras gives you 26, right? You know what? I think Contreras could potentially hit 30. But this is what I'm talking about, right? Who am I missing here? Say Don gives you 20, right? I mean, that's 5 dudes with over 20 home runs. Like, that's a good offensive lineup. Adding Nico Hoerner into that and having a guy who's on base all the time allows you to sort of be in a position where you're going to drive in a lot more runs, right? Now the issue with that is to your point here, is Willier needs to take a step forward. Contreras needs to be able to hit to the pull side a lot more. Cedon needs to take a step forward. Story, I think we could, if he's healthy, I think we'd pencil him in for 20. And Roman Anthony needs to take a step forward. And that's a lot, right? That's a lot of steps forward. And realistically, how many steps forward are we going to actually take here? Right? In my opinion, even if you get a really good season, 3 out of the 5 of those go right, and you think that's a really good season, do I think at some point Roman could crack 40 home runs? I think it's possible for him to get into the bare minimum. I think sort of his peak. I think we'd see him in the mid-30s. I don't know that 40s is really the question. He's such a contact-oriented hitter. He's such a, he's not afraid to go gap to gap when he needs to either. That I don't think he'll ever be a guy who's going to pull 40 home runs. But I could see like mid-30s easily. But again, you're talking about so many guys having to take a step forward. You know what I mean? So I understand what you're saying, but there is a chance. And if the Red Sox believe there's a chance, Nico Hoerner could be the difference. And that's my point, right? Is even if 3 out of the 5 of those guys, let's say Willier gets to 30 this year, let's say Cedon gets to 20, let's say Roman Anthony gets to 25. Okay, so Wilson Contreras didn't take that step forward. Now he's down at like 20, let's say 24 home runs, right? What are you going to get out of Massa, Tristan, Marcelo, Campbell, Carlos Narvaez, even bench role players like Romy? How many home runs are you going to get? Like, I think you increase your home run here. And then if you get to that point and you're like, okay, you add a Nico Hoerner in here, and this is a guy who's going to score. How many runs did Nico Hoerner score last year? And runs are kind of subjective just because, yeah, you scored 90 runs last year, right? Like, okay, you put him on base in front of Roman Anthony, in front of Wilson Contreras, in front of Willie Abreu. Like, all of a sudden, you're talking about guys who can drive this guy in. So it does make your lineup more dynamic, and it does put you closer to being towards that World Series team. Now, the difference is between a Nico and an Izak is you put Izak in there, and now you go back to this scenario where it's, okay, let's say Willier doesn't get to 30. Let's say he gets to 27. No. I don't think if Roman Anthony hits 30 home runs next year, we've got an absolute incredible, like, Hall of Fame path rookie on our hands, right? But let's say he gets to 2025 here. So let's go back to the scenario, but instead of Nico Hoerner, you add in Isaac Paredes. Now, this is why Isaac Paredes makes a lot of sense for the Red Sox, is because now you put Isaac Paredes, and let's say you're expecting Isaac to hit 26 home runs, right? Let's say 27. That's 6 different guys who could potentially be taking that step. Why is this keep happening? Okay, which one of these pages was unresponsive? It's just a baseball. Stop trying to load. Now you've got more room for error, right? Let's say William Bray doesn't get to 30, but Isaac Paredes does get to 26, 27, potentially 30, right? Like then you're sitting there and you're saying, oh, all right, well, now, you don't need to have every single person take a step forward in terms of their offensive production. So it'll be interesting, right? I don't know. I think the Nico Hoerner, Isaac Paredes argument is a little bit interesting because it's like, okay, would you rather the guaranteed for more power? For the love of Christ. What? Just wait. Okay. Well, then I'm just going to exit out of you. And if we need to, we'll go back to baseball trade values. You guys do think Roman will hit 40-plus home runs? I don't know, dude. Like, yeah, I get it. The high exit velocities will eventually lead to balls leaving. And it's very clear he's got home run potential. You know what I mean? But 40 dongs is not something that should be taken lightly. There are very few people in Major League Baseball who could hit 40 home runs. It was the whole time Baseball Reference, for the love of God. Just stop trying to load. I don't want you to load. Just stay. We're going to StatCast. Forget it. What was Roman's injury? He what, chat? Strained his oblique, wasn't it? I think it was a grade 2 oblique strain, if I remember that correctly. Boom, chat. Boom. I mean, he's perfectly fine. I'm not really worried about him messing up his swing, considering he didn't try to come back. Those tend to flare up later down the line. If Roman Anthony was like 30-ish years old, I'd say yeah. Roman Anthony's what, 21, 22? I wouldn't be worried about that. Flare-ups. You know what I mean? I don't think that Roman Anthony is too big of it, oh my God, this is gonna be a problem type conversation. If this had happened, I will say this, Seuss, if this had happened at, let's say, 28, 29 in the middle of his season, and then he came back a little bit early and had to fight through it to get the Red Sox into the postseason, and you could tell the swing was a little bit off because he was fighting this, then it'd be like, yeah, okay, this is something to pay attention to. But the fact that it was at the end of the year, he didn't come back, he was asymptomatic by November, I think we're going to be in pretty, it's more so going to be, okay, can he stay healthy? Right, which is interesting because that was never really a thing throughout his minor league career. At least I don't think so. Like, if you go back to his minor league years, they're pretty full seasons, if I remember correctly. Like, obviously 25 wasn't. But 24, he played 119 out of a possible. How many games does AAA play? 120? Yeah, I mean, he played a full season. And then he played a full season here, too. So, he hasn't really shown any issues with that. Swinging could tweak back muscles occasionally on anyone. Yeah. That's the other thing, too. It's a pretty common injury. It's not like Tristan Casas worries me in terms of, hey, How's he going to bounce back from that? Because that's a rare injury and a lot of them happen to pitchers too. It doesn't really happen a ton to fielders, but it's a difficult injury to come back from. So I'm not really worried about it, but I am going to sit here and just dream about the idea of Roman Anthony next year. How many home runs did he have? Like how many games did he get those 8 home runs in? Because it felt like, can I just get to monthly, please? Oh, there we go. Yeah, like he figured himself out. September, August. August was when he figured out the home runs, huh? I mean, he only played 2 games in September, but he really figured out the home run. 6 home runs in 26 games. Now, this is really unrealistic to sit here and be like, oh, let's just bring this out over 162. But just hypothetically, if we're talking about peaks of Roman Anthony, this is on pace for 37 home runs, right? So the 40 home run power is definitely in there. Where's Massa going to end up if Duran becomes the everyday or almost everyday DH? I don't know that Duran ever does become the everyday DH. I think it would behoove the Red Sox to keep him in the outfield just because it doesn't totally tank his trade value, right? If they do want to trade him at some point, which at this point, like if you're going to hold on to him this offseason, just hold on to him the rest of his contract. Yeah, I do. If they don't trade for a second baseman, Mark, yes, 1,000% yes. I think Christian Campbell could absolutely force his way onto it if he has a really, really great spring training. Because the other thing too is that, again, we've talked about this before, but the Red Sox really want Romy and Marcelo to be the platoon, and I think it's a perfect platoon here. If Christian Campbell is in an incredible spring training, he solves that platoon for them. You know what I mean? Like he immediately kind of figures that out. So it would be fantastic. But the problem is you'd also probably still want a platoon. Still want to platoon Christian Campbell with somebody a little bit. That's when guys like Nico Suarez. Who is Nico Suarez? Nick Sogard. Is that Nick Sogard's alter ego? Where's Casas going to be after spring training? AAA, I'd imagine. If I'm going to place a bet on anybody ending up in AAA, it is going to be Tristan Casas. I would almost bet everything on that. Almost everything. Yeah, the problem would be figuring out Campbell's glove. They're working on him right now at second base, so we'll kind of see if anything changed. I go back to, I don't think we can get on Fangraphs like a month-by-month breakdown on Christian Campbell's defense. I think they just do overall. I think return is May 1st, yeah. That makes sense. Like, he was a terrible defensive second baseman. I mean, terrible. But I just want to look at, like, I wish there was a way to look at this month by month, because I would be willing to bet. It really did feel like Christian Campbell started to fall apart defensively, like noticeably defensively, when his offense started kicking the can too. Is it true Tristan Casas isn't liked very much in the clubhouse? Not from anything I've heard. So this is kind of the interesting conversation, but I don't know if I can get to it. Yeah, I agree, Mark. I agree. But it's a conversation of, are you willing to commit to him fully being better in his 2020, what would this be? Age 24 season? Yeah, in his age 24. Are you willing to fully commit to that after what you saw last year? I don't think it'd be incredibly smart to do that. Yeah, Dennis, I'm sure they're not down there playing football. Kopech, I don't really see the reason to sign Kopech. Kopech to a minor league deal, maybe. To a major league contract, I don't see any reason. Outside of, hey, guys, he once played for the Red Sox, Do I think the Red Sox are cooking up a trade no one's talking about? Yeah, so that was kind of the other point of this little experiment today. to take a look at, a bunch of different options and try and figure out which ones were viable, which ones weren't. Was to just sort of give you an idea of, hey, the Red Sox are gonna have to get creative if they want to make this trade, So okay, I'm gonna start heading out here, chat. But I did want to recap this real quick because I think it's again really important to figure out, what's the reality in terms of where the Red Sox are at with a trade, right? If we just go down the list, we talked about C.J. Abrams. He's gonna cost a ton. He's incredibly far from being a certainty when it comes to the defense. Doesn't really help you in terms of the strikeouts all that much. Not terrible, but doesn't really help you a ton. Nico Hoerner, great addition, especially if you're going for, especially if you're going to go for a defensive forward athletic team. You're going to have to overpay for him and hope that you can extend him, right? And that's a big hope considering the Red Sox situation with Alex Bregman. Isaac Paredes feels like it'd be a smart fit, especially at second base, but it's an issue of trying to figure out how it actually matches up for both teams. There is a reality here, but I don't know if it's a reality that's going to come to fruition. Ketel Marte at this point is a dream scenario, right? Blow the house down for Ketel Marte. I just don't see it happening. Xavier Edwards, again, one of those guys that, okay, you can make the case for, but you're going to be paying about what you'd be paying for Nico Hoerner and hoping that this guy turns into Nico Hoerner at some point in his major league career. And then there's like other options, right? So maybe they do get creative, maybe they don't. But it'll be interesting. I hope you guys enjoyed kind of deep diving into these guys. I try to do something a little bit different instead of just simply news and rumors, right? A Celtics fan, the Cubs don't do that. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. All right, Meek, I will. So I will see you tomorrow. We're going to be talking about that guy the Red Sox just signed. It's not a crazy signing or anything, but I do think it's significant in terms of what could end up looking like for the Red Sox bullpen come 2026. Outside of that, I appreciate all the birthday wishes. Thank you very much. Meant a lot to me. Versatility, as always, thank you for your kindness. Means a lot. Mike, thank you. All the new members, thank you. I will see you guys in the red seats.